Next up is a fascinating discussion about design problems, solving them with the wisdom of plants. We are glad to have Kigge Mai Hvid, partner of Yard Studio, to present for us. We will then have Nissa Cornish, Executive Director at Redress, to guide us through a discussion and Q&A session. Let's welcome Kigge and Nissa.
Thank you so much. It's my great pleasure to introduce and welcome Kigge Mai Hvid here from Copenhagen this morning, joining in. Kigge is globally recognized as a thought leader and speaker who's widely asked to speak globally. Her many titles and accolades include, among others, founder of the world's largest design award, the Index Award, member of the World Economic Forum's Expert Network, and of the Danish government's Disruption Council. She's also a member of many prestigious boards and advisories, including Hong Kong Design Council's own advisory board. She also has a personal collection to Hong Kong through her daughter-in-law. Through Kigge's own Yard Studios in Denmark, she is passionate about deepening our understanding of the plant kingdom and its beauty and magic, and applying that knowledge to human problems, from energy to design to sustainable systems. It's my pleasure to welcome Kigge. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Nissa.
Good morning. It's quite
I'm
early
so
there.
good, and thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
It's very, very early here. Yeah, hi, Nissa, and thank you for the introduction. It's good to see you again. So, and welcome to me at my home, all of you. I've really been looking forward to your visit here. However, I would have so much preferred to be in Hong Kong and being able to meet all of you. As Nissa just mentioned, I simply love Hong Kong, and it just deepened because I recently got a Hong Kongese daughter-in-law. So our theme today, the overall theme, is circular economy. Related here to my question to you is, can plant give us new and visionary solutions to design problems? And why is that question related to the circular economy? There's a very simple reason, and the reason is that if you understand the natural world, it becomes so much more easy to understand circular economy. So let's just start by understanding a little bit about plants before we look into together how they can actually inspire better design solutions. First of all, we have 350,000 different plants in the world. But 1/5, that is 1/5 of them, are threatened by extinction. That's due to invasive species, climate change, urbanization, agriculture, humans at large. So, but still, with all these plants, they're so important to us. For instance, we have 50,000 plants that we use for medication. Of these 50,000 plants, 15,000 are threatened by extinction. But we use these plants for cancer treatment, for cough reduction, for sedatives, for any kind of treatment you can really imagine. For instance, just as an example, we have just around 100 different plants that we use to treat diabetics. But moreover, we use plants for foods. We have 150 plants that we use for food, and just 12 of these plants, they make up 3/4 of everything we eat. But also, as you know, we use plants for timber, for clothes, for fire, for heat, and then we use them for beauty. The natural world of plants, they provide us with an enormous amount of beauty, of form, and of colors. And is there anything more we use plants for? Yeah, that's just a small little thing. We use plants for oxygen. Plants are the only reason we can actually breathe. It takes 400 plants to enable one person to breathe. All this and a lot more is what plants are doing for us. And still, we're not afraid that 1/5 of them are actually dying. That puzzles me. And why is that? Is that because plants do not speak up? Is that because they don't move? They do not run away when they're dying or afraid, as we do? Is it because they make no screams, no loud sounds? Do we think that plants are dumb and don't care about them? But plants are not dumb. They have the same and even more senses than we do. Just as an example, plants have the ability to sense water. We can hear water, we can taste water, we can feel water, but plants have a specific ability, or a sense that's just anchored at finding water. Another amazing thing about plants is that they are distributed beings. They're not central beings. We can be taken out if people blind our eyes, we cannot see. If people ruin our ears, we cannot hear. They can cut out our tongue and we cannot speak. But in a plant, up to 90% of the being of the plant can be destroyed and it can still function. That's because everything plants have in them, all the senses, all the abilities plants have, are distributed throughout the whole being of the plant. Also, very large parts of the plants are hidden. As you all know, there's a big part of the root, and as an example, a rye plant can have up to 13 kilometers of roots. That's just one rye plant. And plants are good at making partnerships. For instance, they make partnerships with fungi, which enables them to communicate throughout the world or throughout the soil, connecting trees to other trees. Right now, we as humans, we make up 0.3% of life on Earth. That is 0.3% of all life on Earth. But we think we know everything. Isn't that amazing? But let us see if we can learn anything from plants. I'll just give you a few of the many fantastic examples. So let's say you're designing to solve a specific challenge or a specific task. For instance, you could be designing to clean up nuclear waste. You don't have to find out how to do that because someone else already knows. Sunflowers. So at the huge wastelands of Chernobyl and around Fukushima, you'll see huge beds or fields with sunflowers. First of all, they provide life and a little bit of hope in the area that's been ruined, but also it's thought that they're able to clean up nuclear waste. Or you could have a task where you are challenged to design something that will enable us to use less fresh water on cleaning our clothes. Pangaea, the clothes company or fashion company, was asked to do just that. So they looked into this plant, and it actually helps us clean the clothes we have, so we don't need to clean it that often. Or you could be asked or tasked with providing clean drinking water. Maybe just look into what the mangrove trees are doing. They're capable of desalinating water. So if you learn what they do, you might be able to do the same. Another question you could ask yourself is, you could try to design for specific ability in what you design. So say you want to design something that's super strong and still flexible. You could look into the pomelo. You can actually throw this plant from 30 feet up and it won't harm the inside of the plant. And that is because the organized peel structure in the plant. So if you understand that peel structure, you'll be able to design structures that you can use, for instance, in buildings, and they will be strong. Another specific trait you could design for could be water repellent. You might want to design some rain clothes or boots or a new hat or even the seat for your bike or whatever. You could look into this little one. You might have noticed that lotus flowers have these beautiful drops on the leaves in the water, for instance. And the reason for that is that the lotus flowers found out a way to become water repellent, so they won't rot with a lot of water. Look into that and learn from that. And these examples were like more product examples, but also if you're interested in designing something really resilient, you could, for instance, design a system or a network. And as I just told you, plants are super distributed beings, and you could be inspired by that to designing something that does not have a center and thereby is much more resilient than many other things we design. Or you could ask yourself, or turn the question around and say, what can I learn from a specific plant? What could roots, for instance, inspire me to do? And seeds. You should look into seeds of plants. They have the most amazing capacities. So, roots and seeds. If you want to design a robot, right now what you're doing to design robots is that you're mimicking human beings. So they have something like arms and something like legs, and they can move on surfaces, for instance. But right now there's an experiment going on Mars where they're trying to see if they can fit a system where they use the capacity of seed pods to distribute a lot of small things in once, and then of roots to put roots down. So in the future you might see a system where we, instead of having one small robot driving away on Mars, you'll have an explosion of small robots from the orbit to distribute throughout Mars, and you'll have all these small robots setting down roots in the soil of Mars and sending back to us information on what's happening on Mars. Or maybe you know this marble seed. It has small wings. Very many kids play with them. That is already in use to design drones, for instance, because it has a very specific way of flying that is super energy efficient. So by looking at a marble seed, you can learn how to design something that flies really well. These examples are about, practical stuff. But as we just discussed, can plants teach us something about beauty? And of course, in my mind, they can. I mean, that's the largest reservoir we have of beauty in the world. So look at this one. I guess you know it. It's the Opera House in Sydney. that was designed by Danish architect Jørgen Utzon, and he designed it because he was peeling an orange. So what might look like sails is actually the peel of an orange. Or this one that many of you might know, the Esplanade Theatre in Singapore, that was designed to mimic a durian fruit. These are large, of course. If you don't want to design entire buildings, what can you do then? This one is Zen, and they designed the packaging and bottles for their perfume line, just mimicking the bamboo and the way it works, and which is quite beautiful as well. So these examples were just a fraction of the many, many inspirations you can gain from plants. Plants are out there, and they have already solved a lot of the questions we ask ourselves how to solve. And with 350,000 different plants and many more discovered every year, you can find so much more inspiration. But where to start? There's one place you have to start, and that is Stefano Mancuso. He's a professor of plant neurobiology at the University of Florence in Italy. It's amazing. He has been doing a TED Talk and several books as well. Another place to go for your basic knowledge is to go to Kew Gardens, the botanical gardens of England, in London. They have a book that's called Flora, The Secret World of Plants. Buy that one and understand the basic mechanics of plants and see the very beautiful book. And while there, you could go to State of the World's Plants. That is a report that's published every second year by Kew Gardens and tells us how are the plants around the world. On a little more sophisticated level, you could read Lab Girl by Hope Jaron. She's amazing and a fantastic writer. Or you can go and read The Understory, which is a novel by Richard Powers. Or maybe The Hidden Life of Trees. So here are some of what you should try to look at right now. But better yet, go out there. Go into nature. Sit down, take a look, and enjoy all the amazing solutions. So summing up, plants are intelligent, beautiful beings. They've been there a long time before us, and I'm sure they're going to be there a long time after. If you start looking into plants as a base of your design inspiration, you'll gain inspiration, tons of beauty, and tons of unique experience. So my suggestion is that we learn from plants and that we together with plants build a sustainable future together. Thank you.
Thank you, Kigge. Wow, what a lovely, inspiring way to start the day over there in Europe. And as someone who grew up in nature and surrounded by plants, I relate very deeply to the words that you're saying. Thank you. Let's kick off with some questions, if you don't mind. One of the things that really struck me is, with the examples that you were giving, how exceptionally good plants already are at things like keeping clothes clean, as an example, or repelling water. And I was thinking about sort of the distinction between learning from and mimicking those qualities and systems and actually, in contrast, harnessing, or maybe in some cases, exploiting plants themselves for those qualities. What do you think about that? Like, how do we know when it's okay to use the plants themselves, as in medicine, and when it's better to sort of mimic and create our own systems around what we learn from them?
I think you're pointing to a super important issue. For instance, in fashion, a lot of plants are used for dyeing clothes. So, you can never overuse. So what I do on a personal level is that I ensure there's always enough left from plants to other people and to wildlife and insects. So that's just on my small personal level. On the larger level in the world, we need to ask experts. So if you're into like large scale harvesting of plants, you have to have someone with you that actually knows the field. And as you're saying, Nissa, in many cases, it will be better not to take the plant and use the plants directly, but simply use it and the mechanics and innovations made by plants, simply use them as an inspiration of what you're doing. And then, of course, make sustainable solutions so we do not harm any more plants.
Thank you. Yes, that makes sense. We're going to take a question from the audience now. This one just popped up on my screen. The question is, there are many new materials made from plants every year, like bamboo and trees used to make utensils and products for human consumption. However, those alternative products, which often are great alternatives to things like petroleum-based products, are often quite expensive or have unknown properties or are sold at select shops only. So the question is, how do we raise people's attention and awareness towards this type of utensil or product?
Yeah, I think there's two things in it. First of all, we might not need that many new products. In my world, we actually have very, very many products. So maybe we should simply consider with ourselves, do we need the new product? That's one thing. And then, of course, if we're talking about not only plant-made products, but if we're talking about a wider range of sustainable product or reusable products, then we have to make them accessible to everyone. And just if we take another look and look into plastic, right now there's like kind of a plastic revolution going on around the world. And that wasn't present like 10 years ago. So I believe strongly, and I'm very confident that we will have new mechanics and we'll learn new ways of doing stuff. So we'll be able to distribute plant-based or also just sustainable solutions to the biggest audience in the world, not only to the select few.
I hope so too. That's very good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question links it a little bit back to fashion, which is my realm at Redress, and circularity, which is the topic of today's of this panel. So, of course, we've talked about linking circularity and function and beauty to what plants can achieve. So, obviously, plant life is, by its very nature, circular. And in fashion, we're talking a lot about moving towards a circular fashion economy. And I guess my question broadly is, have we learned everything we can from plants in this sense? And what do you think we're missing, or where do you think we can head next in this relationship between what plants know and what we're trying to achieve?
I think there's a very interesting area. We haven't learned enough for plants yet. We know so little. Some people know a lot, but most of us know so little. So we need to learn more. But I think there's an interesting area right now, which is in between plants, fungi, and bacteria. So those relations, where can we learn new stuff from that? The fungi are so important to how, for instance, trees work, and they make them communicate and so on. So, for instance, there's this lab in London. I think they're called Faber's Futures, and they have been using bacteria to color clothes. They were doing some experiments with bacteria in their lab, and they noticed that what was left would actually color textiles lying around. So they used that to grow colors for textile on a large scale. On a larger scale. So to me, an area to look into now for researchers is the area between what's over the ground, going down into the roots, looking into the fungi, and looking into the relation between bacteria, plants, and fungi. I think there's a lot to learn there.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you. Right, 2 more questions. The second last one is a bit more holistic, I guess, and broad. So I'm moving a little bit away from the technical. So if you said early on that plants, why do we abuse them this way? Why are 1/5 of them going extinct? Is it because they can't speak? Is it because they can't scream? So my question is, if plants could speak, aside from, of course, pleading their case for survival, what is the one thing that you think plants would advise or say to humans collectively?
I think they would say, if you do not take care now, we're going to suffocate you. I mean, we produce your oxygen. They would say that, and then they would make a beautiful plea for working together. Plants are good at working together, much better than we are, basically. They are good at looking after their small ones and working in groups and working in systems. So I think they would ask us to get inspired by their capacity to do partnerships and to work together to accommodate for all. That would be interesting.
Thank you. Okay, and for one final thought, we've talked about many, many functions that plants can provide, from water repellent to cleaning and desalinating water to keeping clothes clean, everything like that. So for you personally, what is your one favorite thing about plants, having studied so deeply into this kingdom?
The favorite thing about plants is the beauty. I think that I, for one, and I think that's a human thing, it's difficult to live without beauty. And just walking out to an area in Hong Kong or in Singapore or even in the north of Sweden or Norway, you'll find plants that are so beautiful and so inspiring in terms of form, shape, what they do, colors. And I think that's just, I mean, some of the best things that happened to me in the world was people taking me out and seeing, I mean, for instance, just visiting the botanical gardens of Singapore. It's been amazing and experiences that I would never live without.
Oh, thank you. What a beautiful, uplifting way to end this session. Thank you so much, Kigge, for joining us so early in the morning. We've had a wonderful time. Thank you to the audience for joining us. Goodbye.